I was wrong in doing what I did.
No! Are you listening?
Sean here, and something blows my mind when I think about it. Lorne had every excuse that he could have used for the Kayla situation. Every excuse. And one of them might have even helped to contribute. But he's too dumb. He's too dumb. What did he come up with? Automatic car, because he didn't know what an automatic car was. He couldn't turn around. He was trying to go home because the storm and his dogs, the same dog he chained to a treadmill. None of that sounds plausible or even reasonable. It doesn't ring true. What this man could have said, one of the things he could have said, he should have said, because it might be true, is that he was a raging alcoholic. Remember when Lorne came home from the bar? I love how Babsby puts it. Please tell me something to make me feel good about us. Asking a 13-year-old to be his alarm clock. We can all see it. Lorne eagerly staring at that computer. She comes on. Whenever she gets back on, he just giddily gets up, gets his coffee, and quickly slides back into the chair so he can start questioning her about genitalia. If Ramona had asked him, and Lorne would have covered his tracks. You know Lorne. Okay, Debbie, you know what the reason is? I love you, okay? That's the reason. Like that was some big revelation that she was, oh God, you love me. But this is Lorne we're talking about. He could have picked up on the fact that Ramona was talking about his drinking. And the manipulator he was, he could have just blurted out, I don't want to tell you this, but I was an alcoholic. This is another true story. I love telling you about Chris. We're at the dinner table. Oh my God. At Chili's. And him and this other dude who don't really care for her either. But we're in the same office. We're trying to be a team. Be team players. Me and Howard. We sit down. Waitress comes over, who of course she leaves, and this little dumpy dude is like, oh yeah, that chick with tattoos who's into biker dudes wants me. Moving on. And he said, yeah, well, we didn't want to tell you this, but me and the guy that was sitting next to him, we're actually Jedi. Real Jedi. Oh my God. See, he would say anything. Another story, I'm just making a point here. He was at a gas station. He had mentioned 2 weeks before that he wanted to be a park ranger. He was at a gas station filling gas, he said, and some guy comes up to him and goes, man, I'm telling you, I got to get Howard on here. When he tells them they're funnier. But this guy walks up at the gas station and goes, man, you look like you could be a good park ranger. Just some random guy walks up and tells him that he looks like he'd be the job he dreamed of, which is just wandering around the park, nobody managing him, probably sleeping. But Lorne, he's not even smart enough to do that. There are dozens of excuses. Well, she was telling me she was 18. I started to fall for her, and we got towards the end of it all, and she told me she was 13, but by that time, I was in love with her. I was completely in love with her. Didn't even do that. One time he tried to claim that, children can love too. Holy shit, Lorne. So dumb. Thank God he's so dumb. If he was smart, he could have manipulated the system. He wouldn't be disowned by his siblings. He wouldn't be a joke in Cornville. But what did he come up with when he was talking to Chris? Amanda James. I was catfished by Amanda James, so that's the reason I tried to diddle a 13-year-old kid. I didn't get my food. None of that, we already talked about it, none of that makes sense. But he had a built-in defense, and that was the alcoholic defense. Lorne, if he was smart, well, I had a concussion at the time, and I wasn't really thinking clear. That whole month was kind of a blur, which is why I looked so shocked when Chris came in. I mean, I rolled up, I couldn't even tell the difference between the decoys. I was so confused. Saying you had a concussion would be the only time you could say you're confused. I'm still dealing with post-concussion syndrome from about 8 months ago. It was my second concussion. Well, big concussion. Both were in car wrecks. I'm still dealing with it. And takes a long time to go away, especially when you work in front of computers and everything else, and your brain's being strained and you don't have a chance to rest very much. Lorne does nothing all day. He could have recovered in a day. He didn't even use anything like that. He wasn't even smart enough to come up with some excuse that maybe was believable. Lorne loves to blame other people. And in that chat, he mentions people next door to him. They were egging him on, he could say. They were kind of pushing him, saying, Lorne, this will be good for you. Of course, I was drinking most nights. I was going out karaokeing. And I just felt so happy to come home and somebody was happy to talk to me. He didn't do that, though. He didn't do that at all. He said they were leading him on. He didn't want to go there. He said no all the time, which he only said, I don't want to go to prison. Peer pressure is believable. He could have said somebody else was doing it and they were pressuring him. Lorne could have even said that the person who was doing it was scary. That person was scary and he was being pressured, and he said, if I'm going to do it, you're going to do it, because they were using his computer. There are so many bullshit excuses this man could have come up with that might have been realistic, possibly, for some woman somewhere. I will give him some credit for two things. The religious defense we've talked about, I could never do that. I'm Muslim. But the other one, the one that I found funniest, was when they had this conversation with the decoy. They knew exactly what the decoy said. They found out the address. They went to the address at the time the decoy said. And they get there. Someone else was using my computer. Then how did you know how to get here? Sometimes I think Chris Hansen missed the boat on some of these questions. Could have asked, well, how did you know to get here? I mean, the decoy talked with whoever it was with the date and time and what she should be doing, what she should be wearing. Some of these predators are not too bright, thank God. And they will get caught again if they haven't already. Marvin, as funny as he was, I believe it was Florida, where he walked in a towel, and at the end, Chris, like a boss, said, you can keep the towel. And of course, Marvin, for the first time, tried to be a man. No, that's okay. Those guys, it wouldn't work. Ryan Gosling didn't have a last name. He was one of those special guys on the planet. He just goes by Brian, like Prince and Beyonce. He didn't even use, it was my birthday, nobody else wanted to celebrate it. This one person, this one girl, she wanted to celebrate my birthday. And I was feeling midlife crisis. I just wanted to go somewhere where somebody was going to show me that they cared about the day I was born. Of course, he was talking about, I could have gone to karaoke. They were all going to buy me drinks. We know that was a lie. Because we know Lorne assumed they were going to buy him drinks. So naturally, they were going to do it. I don't know what excuse he could give to a real woman. I don't know what a real woman would be willing to tolerate. Now, chances are, if she's talking to Lorne or dating Lorne, her standards are very low. I mean, a guy who aged 30 years when he took his frickin' hat off and you saw that bald head and suddenly his entire body was exposed. I don't know how that's possible. But he took his hat off and suddenly you could see the shape of his body, his clothes, everything else about him. It was like it all became visible. Lorne is dramatic. He could have even said, well, at that point, it'd been a while since I had a girlfriend. I just never thought anybody would care about me. I felt so insignificant. I just felt like I was invisible. And I was going through the chat room all night just talking to people. And nobody didn't want me in their life. Nobody wanted to chat with me. And all of a sudden, I didn't even care about the age. I was just clicking on people and they were talking. When I found out she was 13, I didn't really care. Finally, after so many years, somebody was talking to me and I felt visible, like I was real. Now, he said that in some way, shape, or form, twice, I think, but not like this. And then here you are, sitting across the table from me. And I feel like I matter, like you really see me as a person. I'm not invisible anymore. A woman with standards that would take her to Lorne might go, oh, wow, that's really deep. Well, Lorne, I'm sorry that happened. She would probably even say that, which for Lorne would be validation. But we know we know that if Lorne was forgiven, once you forgive Lorne, he's going to repeat that behavior. So if the judge had let Lorne off and he was forgiven, he would have done it again anyway. He's that guy, gets in trouble for being late to work, shows up to work for about 2 weeks, guy at our work. They were never going to bring him back. Somebody convinced them that we needed him, so he came back. And for 3 weeks, he was wearing khakis and a polo shirt. The 4th week, he came back in with his boots with literal cow shit and mud on them, dirty jeans, wrinkled t-shirt, mussed up hair, looking like he came off a 12-year binge. Lorne is that kind of guy. With a woman with kids, because chances are, and I don't mean this negatively, a woman with kids in Cornville, there are not a lot of opportunities there, and a 2-income household is very attractive. Very attractive when there aren't big jobs there and you're not willing to drive to another city. Most of the people where I work drive from another city because this is sort of a hub for where I work. Lorne wouldn't drive, so maybe she needed a 2-income household and they were compatible in a few ways. Lorne would have to work through with the kids. Now, if it was a boy, Lorne would be like, that boy don't exist. We got to get that boy out of our damn lives. That son of a bitch came out of your vagina where I want to stick my penis, meaning I'm not the first guy in there, you slut. Moving on. There aren't many excuses he would have at his disposal. His IQ is so low, he's not smart enough to come up with these. When I come up with this bullshit, I try to put myself in a writer's position and what would the main character say if Lorne, you know what, that may be a video. What if Lorne was a character in my novel? What story would I write about Lorne Armstrong? But right now we're talking about this guy who wasn't creative enough to come up with any excuses, who wasn't able to give some kind of reasonable answer to get sympathy from a real woman. I still think that Lorne doesn't know how to talk to women. I still believe that Lorne never had a girlfriend in high school. I do not believe he ever slept with Paula. I told you what happened with Paula, and I was right. I don't know much about Nikki, but I wish I knew more. And I wish somebody would ask him about Sherry, because she was very similar to Paula. It was like a mix of Paula and Nikki. See if he'll admit it. I do want to say this about Lorne. I don't want him to ever come up with a reasonable excuse. This is part of the reason I fear people who show up. You know, these people who would try to befriend Lorne would say, hey man, we know man, you were just in a bad spot. And they might say, and you felt invisible, and finally a female was showing you attention. Some kind of reasonable excuse in his head. And then Lorne would go, yeah, that's exactly it. And from that point on, he could say, and you know he would do this, well, other people even saw it. They saw what it was. Even though they came up with the excuse, Lorne would adopt it. So I hope to God these people are not doing that. And I hope he never comes up with a logical reason. Time is passing him by. I don't think he has the testosterone that a lot of us have. The same sex drive, I don't think it's ever going to go away, and I'll probably be a perv for the rest of my life. I'm not ashamed to say that. It's part of human nature. But I don't think Lorne has a sex drive. And I think the only way he's going, man, this is true, the only way psychologically he's going to be able to satisfy his need is if he performs actions on other people that may not involve sex. When you're doing that, not for the purpose of sex, but to fill a psychological need, that's a dangerous situation because it's not for the right reasons. There is no connection of, what did David Schumacher, it's a connection of bodies, as David Schumacher said. About sex is, making love is a connection of bodies. Typical pedo talk. You have an old soul. Typical pedo talk. I'm surprised he didn't use that. She had an old soul. Like, she was much older. It was really weird. I knew a girl who was taken advantage of. I used to teach Taekwondo to her, and she came up to me and told me the story about a guy who did that. She fell for it. It was a pretty sad story, but thankfully Lorne hasn't come up with that yet. So he's been this far out from the sting and has never come up with a reasonable excuse. He will never admit that he really did it. He hasn't even attempted to come up with new excuses. As I said, that probably worked one time with one person. If Lorne working 1% of the time means it's going to work all of the time. So until he smartens up, as he told Roy, he's going to keep using those excuses, and he's going to remain single. Thank God. Thank you, Heelborn. Thank you, Blue Boy. And to all the catfish that came before Blue Boy. You are much appreciated, and you have saved a lot of women, a lot of heartache, a lot of fear, and a lot of tears. So, hats off to you guys. That's my video. I love you guys. I will see you in the next one.
Hang on, I can't even catch my breath. Hang on.
What?